What is going on, guys? It's ThePowerBauer here, and I think this might actually be the first video I've ever done where I'm wearing green, but I got a rep for my boy Zelda. I love the Zelda franchise. In fact, my favorite game in the entire series is Skyward Sword. Now that all my credibility with the Zelda franchise has been thrown out the window, please don't click off the video. Every major gaming franchise has that one big and popular title that is pretty much universally considered the best of the series. It can be for its innovation, or maybe just because it's the most fun. For Mario, it's Super Mario 64, Star Fox has Star Fox 64, and Zelda, of course, has Ocarina of Time. Was the Nintendo 64 incredibly popular or something? All of these games changed their respective franchises for years to come. But what happens if you are the game that comes after these successes? After every good title, speculation of a sequel or follow-up game starts ramping up to the point where many fans set their bars way too high or are way too fixated on what they want and aren't open to new ideas. This may have been felt the hardest with the Legend of Zelda series. Ocarina of Time is considered by many to maybe be the greatest video game of all time, so the standards for a sequel game were maybe the highest of all time as well. And what were the next two major titles? People fucking hated these games. These two games are so similar, but so different at the same time. They change so much to the Zelda formula and have an experience unlike any other game. But they both came at a time where they weren't what anybody wanted. After Ocarina of Time, people wanted more of the same, but we got this. And after the tech demo of Link and Ganondorf were shown at E3 2001, people wanted a more mature Zelda game, but we got this. Both drew lots of criticism at the releases, but are now many people's favorite games in the entire series. Even to the point of both receiving remakes with Majora's Mask on the 3DS and Wind Waker on the Wii U. Yeah, sorry for that, Wind Waker. With so much in common, why don't we go ahead and pit the two black sheep of the Legend of Zelda franchise against each other? This is Majora's Mask versus Wind Waker. Majora's Mask takes place immediately after the events of Ocarina of Time, where Link is searching for Navi. He is attacked by Skull Kid, who was wearing a mask. I wonder what that mask could be. Link chases Skull Kid into a dark cave, but he is then turned into a Deku Scrub. You arrive in Clock Town, where it appears as the moon is crashing towards the earth, and you only have 3 days before the collision happens. Basically, what you need to do is lift the curse on all 4 areas of Termina before the moon crashes and then confront Skull Kid. Link battles Majora in space! Because Zelda is always making creative leaps before Mario. The world is then saved, and Link continues to search for Navi. Yeah, this wasn't your average save Zelda plotline that many people probably were expecting. Wind Waker, on the other hand, kind of is a save Zelda plotline, but also not at the same time, if that makes any sense. Like, first you have to save your sister, but then you get mauled by a giant chicken. You meet a holy fuck a talking boat! You travel with the King of Red Lions to obtain the 3 pearls to eventually access Hyrule below the ocean. You get the Master Sword, which already makes this better than Majora's Mask, and travel back to the overworld. You finally kill this giant chicken and challenge Ganondorf. Yeah, that doesn't go too well. Link and Tetra travel back to Hyrule where, holy shit, a talking boat! At least Zelda is in this game, unlike Majora's Mask. Link then needs to revive his Master Sword and challenge Ganondorf to one final battle. Okay, I know those are both very quick synopses of both of those games, but I can guarantee you those are the best descriptions of those games you will ever get. Wind Waker is a take on the normal Zelda formula, but done in a completely unique way which differentiates it from the other titles. While Majora's Mask just threw that out the fucking window and has a story that is not even close to any other game. But just because Majora's Mask story is so unique, that doesn't necessarily make it better. To me, I've always seen the main appeal of Majora's Mask as not the main story of the game, but instead all the separate side quests that you can complete. Wind Waker's main story makes you feel way more attached to the actual characters like your sister, Tetra, and even your grandma. And for me, that is one of the most important parts of a game to actually make this journey mean something for you. I don't feel that drive to complete the journey in Majora's Mask other than to simply beat the game, while I actually want to save my sister and Tetra because you actually get attached with them and really care for them. This is why I love Skyward Sword so much, and for those reasons, I believe Wind Waker has the better story. One of the biggest aspects of Zelda games is the items that you obtain throughout your journey. I mean, even some games like Ocarina of Time get their titles from the main item of the game. Wind Waker's main item is the Wind Waker. No fucking shit. This allows you to change the direction of the wind, teleport with a typhoon, and even possess other characters' bodies. Yeah, it's kinda weird when you really think about it. For being just a little wand, it can do quite a lot. There's also a load of items returning from other games like bombs, boomerang, the bow, and hookshot, which almost are staples to the series at this point. But Wind Waker also added some new items like the grappling hook and Deku Leaf. These let you blow some air, swing across gaps, glide through the air, and even get treasure from the ocean. You even get arguably the most unique mode of transportation of any Zelda game with a fucking boat. Besides the motorcycle in Breath of the Wild, because that's just incredible. The King of Red Lions is essentially a combination of Epona and Navi, but not even close to as annoying as Navi. Although to be honest, even though it's the most unique mode of transportation, sailing just doesn't feel as satisfying as riding a horse. And Majora's Mask? Okay, this isn't even fucking close. I could talk about all the different items that Link uses, but that would be pretty redundant since it's not that much different from Wind Waker, other than Epona and Tattle instead of a talking boat. So what makes this comparison not even close? The masks. I know it's shocking, but a game called Majora's Mask happens to have a lot of masks in it. These obviously are the main appeal and gimmick of this entire game, and I'm not using gimmick in a bad way. This was such a unique idea, and I've never heard of anybody disliking it. They make the game so much easier, like the bunny hood letting Link run super fast, or the Great Fairy Mask which attracts stray fairies to you. And if that one specifically wasn't in the game, my god, this game could have gotten so tedious. Sure, there are some useless masks and some that make you just go, why the fuck? But then there's also the 3 transformation masks that let you be either a Deku Scrub, a Goron, and a Zora. You can traverse the world in such a different way with these, and it adds puzzles that couldn't be done in any other game. Oh yeah, and there's also the Fierce Deity Mask, which lets you just become an overpowered as hell fighter. You only get this once you've collected all of the other masks, and you get it right before the final boss, which makes you feel so accomplished while using it. This is how you do a 100% reward, and not some bullshit like this. I don't think it's even possible to argue this point. Majora's Mask is leagues above Wind Waker when it comes to items. Every Zelda game has its own world to explore, which just gives an amazing feel for the game as a whole. The majority of the games have at least some representation of Hyrule, but it's rarely done the same way. No 2 games have the same exact world, but Majora's Mask and Wind Waker probably have the 2 most different worlds between the 2 games. Wind Waker takes place in the Great Sea with a plethora of islands. Some of these islands are so memorable, with Outset Island, Windfall, and of course Dragon Roost. Each island has its own culture and even species living there. There are obviously Hylians or whatever the hell they're called in this game, but there's also Koroks and Rito. The world in general is even just one of the biggest overworlds too. It's so fun to explore because you never know what you might run into, just from random islands to giant squid monsters that want to kill you. That might not sound fun, but don't knock it till you try it. And down below the ocean is where Hyrule lies. It's awesome to travel to Hyrule Castle, and I definitely did not expect that when I first played this game. But I also have to be fair and say that you barely spend any time in Hyrule, so it's not as cool as you might think. Now, Majora's Mask has no Hyrule whatsoever. Instead, Link falls down a tree and ends up in Termina. Still not really sure how that works. But anyways, Termina is split into 4 separate regions with Clocktown in the center of them. Southern Swamp is, you guessed it, to the swamp and home of the Deku Scrubs. Snowhead is to the north and home of the Gorons. Great Bay is to the west and home of the Zoras, and Ikana Canyon is to the east and isn't really home to anyone in particular and is basically just where people go to fucking die. Each region is entirely different and has a completely different aesthetic to really give a feeling of a whole entire world. Plus, since you can transform into a Deku Scrub, Goron, and Zora, you can actually experience all of these regions in the way of those beings that would be living there normally. It gives a completely different outlook on the world, which I just love. Both games have large overworlds with a variety of differing regions, which really makes them feel like an entire world. But I'm giving this point to Majora's Mask because its regions are easily more diverse than Wind Waker. Wind Waker has different islands, but it's still mostly just a tropical and sunny feeling, while Majora's Mask has that, plus way more. And the Great Sea is just way too fucking big. It's cool to sail and have adventure, but it kinda gets old after sailing for like an hour straight. 7.8 out of 10. Too much water. When I play a Zelda game, what I personally look forward to the most are the dungeons. These can leave an everlasting impact on you and definitely have for me. I remember being in awe of the beauty and creativity of the ancient cistern, as well as wanting to rip my head off at the fucking water temple. Luckily, neither of these games have any dungeons even close to that annoying. Majora's Mask only has 4 major dungeons, which does make it one of the fewest of any 3D Zelda games. But what it lacks in quantity, man does it make up for in quality. Each of the 4 regions surrounding Clocktown has its own dungeon, which fits the vibe and theme of the said region. They even use Link's different forms for the region for the puzzles throughout the dungeon. Like Woodfall Temple has platforms that can only be crossed as Deku Link, and Snowhead Temple uses the Goron form for tons of puzzles. Even Great Bay Temple, for being the quote-unquote water dungeon, is so much more enjoyable than the water temple from Ocarina of Time. And I of course save the best for last. Stone Tower Temple is arguably the best dungeon in all of Zelda. You need to use all 4 of Link's forms throughout the dungeon, and the temple even completely flips, which I didn't think would be a huge change, but it's almost a completely new temple. Wind Waker, on the other hand, almost has double the amount of dungeons with a total of 7. Just like Majora's Mask, every dungeon has a completely different vibe, but since there's 7, it's even more variety. Dragon Roost Island is one of my favorite first dungeons in any Zelda game, and I don't think there's even one dungeon in this entire game that I wouldn't classify as one of the best in the series. Tower of the Gods gives the same heavenly vibe as the Ancient Cistern from Skyward Sword, and it even has a sort of similar aesthetic. The temples in general even have some of the best puzzles in all of Zelda too. I love the puzzles where you need to take control of others, like the statues in Tower of the Gods and Makara or Medley in the Earth and Wind temples. And okay, since I just brought those 2 up, I need to rant about them for a second. Medley as the Earth Sage and Makara as the Wind Sage makes no sense, and they should be flipped. Think about it, Makara is a plant that grows in the ground, and Medley is a fucking bird. That's always bugged me, and I want to know if any of you noticed too. There are definitely people out there who might choose Majora's Mask over Wind Waker's dungeons, but not me. I will give you that Stone Tower Temple might be the best between the two games, but I think almost every Wind Waker temple is better than the other three from Majora's Mask. What also helps Wind Waker is the fact that there's a final dungeon. Majora's Mask has kind of a small area on the moon, but it doesn't give off that final dungeon vibe. You basically just travel back to the 4 previous areas, which Wind Waker does too, plus it actually has Ganon's Tower after that. Majora's Mask gave us quality over quantity, but Wind Waker gave us quality and quantity. Therefore, Wind Waker's dungeons are better. The music for both of these games is sublime. I mean, they're Zelda games, so you'd probably expect that. The aura of every area is just exemplified perfectly through every theme. Dragon Roost Island has such a happy and cheery theme that I can just imagine the Rito flying through the sky to. And it also just makes you happy to be on your journey as this is your first real stop. Stone Tower Temple is almost the exact opposite, with a very slow and dreary theme as you know you are in a place of death, as well as you are nearing the end and the most dangerous part of your journey to this point. There's just something that can't be replicated about Zelda music. Every game has phenomenal music, and I don't think I can ever give any game the edge over any others when it comes to that. Except for Breath of the Wild, because like 70% of the time there isn't any fucking music. Now, after putting these two black sheep of the Zelda franchise through 5 rigorous and grueling categories, I have come to the conclusion that... oh shit, they're tied? Obviously, someone else could come into this debate with their own opinions and have a completely different outcome. But to me, these games are both incredible for similar and different reasons. Majora's Mask lets you travel through a completely unique world that we've never seen again, with an entirely new game mechanic and the different masks that you can use, while Wind Waker has a much grander and vaster world with a deep lore connecting it to Hyrule and how the Great Sea was even formed. Both have incredible dungeons that some people might consider the best in the entire series, and there's so much to do outside of the main story in both of these games. Many would argue that the side quests are the best part of Majora's Mask, and that's where the real emotion comes out. And the side quests in Wind Waker really lets you travel the entire world, even to the remote islands that you would never see if you just wanted to regularly beat the game. Both of these games have changed the Zelda formula in their own respective ways and have made the series better for years. But if I do have to make a decision on which game is better, it's Wind Waker. Come on! You can get free soup whenever you want, they didn't just steal the models from Ocarina of Time, and you have a talking boat. How can it get any better than that? Okay, it just got even better.